working on the history of science and mathematics. Thakura Peru flourished in the 14th century. He was a Shrimal Jain, belonging possibly to a family of merchant bankers which came and settled in Delhi and joined the administration of the Khalji Sultans as an official in the royal treasury and the mint. Peru knew Sanskrit, but he chose not to write in it, not even in Prakrit, which was the language of Jain religious literature. Instead, he chose Apabhramsh, possibly because he was writing first for members of his family, his son, his brother, he mentions that, and also a much wider audience beyond the world of Sanskrit. I think here lies a very important purpose of what he was writing. The city in which Peru was writing is called Delhi in his compositions. This must have been the Apabhramsh name of the city, which became Delhi or Delhi under the influence of Persian, which does not have retroflex sounds. It is also possible that some form of Apabhramsh was spoken in Delhi. In the 14th century, at least 4 or 5 languages were spoken in Delhi, of which we have documented proof, including Punjabi, Braj, a form of Hindi called Khari Boli or standard speech. And I suspect, although this has to be validated, that Apabhramsh too was spoken or read.
All these details are available in the Venkateswara Kaumudi itself?
No.
He has written several books.
The man deserves a biography, but that's not possible because he does not, like a good scholar, write about himself. He only writes about his subject.
No, there are people who mix it. That's why I was asking.
He mentions his son Hempal, also his brother, but doesn't say a lot about himself, his background. So it's possible that his works, which we are going to take a look at quickly before focusing on the Ganitsar Kaumudi, had a much wider audience and a wider circulation. Peru is the author of 6 works, which we can call scientific technical. And he mentions in many of his works that he relied on 3 major sources. One was inherited tradition, of course. The second was listening to people who were knowledgeable in different sciences, having conversations with them, and also, which is very important, his direct personal observation, such as working in the treasury or in the mint. The list of his books is there. Vastu Sara. The titles of the books are in Sanskrit, but inside he uses Prakrit. For instance, if the title is Ratna Pariksha, he would write Rayan Parikha, or not Dravya Pariksha, but Dravya Parikha. There are also ways in which he hints at his knowledge of Sanskrit. But of course, he himself says that one major source of his knowledge is what people had written earlier, scholars as Puva Arya. So Puva Arya is a major source. But what we are focusing here is not that, because that has been covered very competently in this seminar. Jyotishar and a book on gemology, Ratan Pariksha, Ganit Sar comedy on mathematics, composed in Delhi, possibly between 1310 and 1318, during Alauddin Khilji's reign. It's original in its application of mathematical rules to areas which were not traditional. And this is the part that fascinates me the most as a historian. Dhatu Utpatti on metallurgy and perfumery. And finally, Dravya Pariksha, which is the text which introduced me to Thakura Pheru, because I worked on monetary history, and this book is very helpful for the study of money in the 14th century. Some of this enters into his Ganit Sar comedy. Now, there's only one copy of the manuscript. It's a unique manuscript. I don't have the facsimile of Ganit Sar comedy. This is of Dravya Pariksha. It was written perhaps during his lifetime or soon after. It's dated. The name of the scribe is also mentioned, Purisad. And it's written on paper, and we know that by the end of the 13th century, Delhi had paper factories. Paper began to be manufactured in Delhi. And by the time this manuscript was copied, paper was available in shops, including a very interesting reference in a Persian text that if you do not write good history, your book will be pulped and sold to a shop where paper is recycled. Which means that paper is now.
So this started with Delhi or all around India?
First started, no, Gujarat was the first to.
Around 13th century?
Yes, even before the 13th century, but manufacturing of paper by using raw material here started in Delhi only in the 13th century. But by this time, this date is very important because we begin to get lot of references of the use of paper, including sweetmeat sellers wrapping their ware in paper. So there was multiple use of paper. This is a completely new world because we know that paper was so precious that it was not destroyed, it was washed and recycled.
But if sweets are being used for that, then it must be quite cheap, right? If they're wrapping
Yeah,
sweets.
that's true. That's true. This is.
But not commonly, but only high class people.
Possibly, but still.
What was the word for paper then?
Well, the word for paper which I have read in Persian sources is kaghaz.
Hasn't changed since then.
He doesn't use this colophon is of the scribe.
Kabir also uses kaghaz.
Yes.
He calls it kaghaz.
So we are very grateful to a bunch of scholars who published the whole corpus of Thakura Pheru's books in 1961. The manuscript was discovered in Calcutta in 1956, and in a short span of time it was published, and that's the only text that we have. Since it's a unique manuscript, it's very difficult to collate, but it was written very close to Pheru's time, so the possibilities of interpolation or scribal errors, even if there are any, are limited. Another major landmark was the translation of this text.
There, I think you would like to use S.R. Sharma.
S.R. Sharma, that's.
S is missing.
Yes, but S is missing because in Sakya it's Sharma.
No, that Sakya, that doesn't come with the Sharma, but S need not be eliminated. Why do you put R then?
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
Shrimala.
it is just to complete.
No, you are right. Shrimala Raju Sharma is the Sri Ramalu Raja Sharma is his name, but the acronym is
That is fine.
derived from SA of his surname.
That I know.
And we are I'm particularly grateful to him, who was also my teacher in Aligarh. He taught Sanskrit in AMU. And for producing this very helpful book, which is with an introduction and commentary, which has been very useful for me for this presentation. And I'll make it sure that next time I add S.
People will be easily identifying him, otherwise, that is fine.
For the purpose of our presentation, the Ganit Sar comedy can be divided into two parts. The first three chapters are traditional mathematics of Patiganit, derived mainly from Trishatika and Patiganit of Sridhara, and also Ganit Sangara of Mahavira. But the fourth and the fifth chapters are what interest me the most. Application of mathematical rules to new problems based on his personal experience. Such material does not exist in mathematical texts. It's important also for writing the history of 14th century, political history, social history, economic history, history of science and technology, because it covers a whole range of themes, much like the presentation made yesterday on practical manual, which was very helpful to me. The only difference between the two sets of writing is that Thakura produces real data, not imaginary data. He is reading records and using figures in the records to write his book. And that's very, very valuable for anybody who wants material for 14th century history. And economic history, of course, with crop yield, different types of crops, making of dairy products. And I would agree with the learned scholar yesterday that these texts have a very important practical side to them. And I treat Ganit Sar Kaumadi also as a practical manual for accountants, bankers, money changers, masons, record keepers, and others. So the first three chapters, and there is, I have the list, and you are all very familiar with this. I don't think I would be able to add anything meaningful to this. This is a conspectus of what he calls his traditional knowledge, something that he has inherited. I might like to say something about his weights and measures, which are contemporary. The currency Dhamma was a Bilan currency, which became very popular in India as small change. He gives units, fractions. He also gives some very valuable information on how to calculate the purity of gold using both qualitative and quantitative method, the Varnamalika system, on which Professor S.R. Sharma has already written a piece. In his description of sale and purchase, he makes a very interesting emendation, and that is that he does not use the examples of women given in Sridhara, but replaces them with camels. I don't know whether it's something can be read. I don't know whether there is a sensibility involved here, whether there is a disdain for female slavery. in Thakura, Peru, which was rampant in the 14th century. But this is something quite curious. Whereas he borrows the rest, he replaces women with camels. In the third chapter, there is also a very interesting section on 9 types of wall construction. And you can see that these are new. At least some of these are new. The building of dome and how to calculate the volume of domes, spiral stairways, circular spiral stairways, minarets with walls which are half triangle, half circle, which we see in a monument in Delhi. Arches, particularly true arches, which began to be built in Delhi just about the time Peru was writing. Bridges, wells, and step wells. Now, the context in which Thakura, Peru is writing is a new wave of urbanization. In the 13th and 14th centuries, 7 cities were built in Delhi alone between the ridge and the river in this period, one after another with lots of buildings, some of which have survived. With a new system, a new technology of building construction called arcuette, which coexisted cheek by jowl with the traditional Indian system of architecture called Trabeate, with true arches, walls, and domes. In the beginning, we do see the transition, such as the building of gigantic false arch doors in the Qutub complex. But by the time Peru was writing, true arches began to be built in a very big way, because Indian masons and craftsmen had already mastered the technology of building this very difficult thing. New material with greater use of brick, lime mortar, and gypsum as cementing material. This kind of contrast between Trabeate and arcuette is more prominent in India than one can see, let's say, in the Byzantine Islamic world. And I would like you to see 2 slides, evocative slides of 2 monuments, one built in the 6th century, Hagia Sophia, Justinian's church. If you remove the minarets which were added by the Turks later, the similarity between that monument and the Dome of the Rock built by the Umayyad Caliph Abdul Malik in Jerusalem in the 7th century, they're very similar monument. This dome is very difficult to periodize or characterize as an Islamic. It can be called a Byzantine monument. But just look at this transition.
This is artistic picture, is it?
No, these are real pictures.
Real.
Yeah. In artistic pictures, I would have removed those pencil-looking minarets. But they are there, of course.
Is this the one which is surviving or not surviving?
They are all surviving.
Yeah, Constantinople.
Yeah. Just look at this. You can see the contrast. Because there is a new technology which is now beginning to use light, mastered, whatever you would like to call it. And this is an example of, to illustrate some of the passages in the Gadit Sar comedy, fluted minaret with alternate half circle and triangle that you can see in the minar, and the first true arch gate in Alai Darwaza, which was built in 1311 AD. Before that, there is no example of a true arch building in Delhi or in India for that matter. And this beautiful building in which you can see the two traditions together, the beam and bracket architrave Trabeat tradition, top floor, and the arcuate tradition in Firoz Tughlaq's Madrasa in Haus Khas. Now this is the context in which much of, sorry?
When is this one built?
This is late 14th century. This is an example in the third chapter, 6986, of how he explains: calculate the volume of the wall space, deduct doors and windows, reduce the remainder by 3 by 20 to get the volume of mortar. The result, when divided by the volume of a single brick, will get the total number of bricks. So very useful for masons to calculate the number of bricks and also the volume of lime and gypsum mortar. These are the themes of the fourth and the fifth chapters. He calls them Desa, Vastra, Janta, Apabhramsh of Yantra, for magic squares. Also very useful, and I'll just give one or two examples. The most useful, of course, is the fifth chapter, which gives numerical data on crop yield, which is very difficult to get in any source. All this is not pure maths, but meant to facilitate professional work, and that makes this work very useful for people to copy and disseminate.
Jamta is which language? Is Apabhramsh? Or could you trace that? Jamta?
Yeah, it's Apabhramsh. Jant, it's Jant.
Origin could be Jantra, Yantra.
Yeah, it is from Yantra. Yantra, Jantra, Jant. Actually, in the section on magic square, he gives the impression that it's also some kind of a device. So.
Device for getting money, for getting prosperity.
Interestingly, there is no hint of that in the Ganit Sar comedy. In the Ganit Sar comedy, all magic squares are meant to facilitate thinking, calculation, practical use. There is no hint of divination. There is no hint of any supernatural benefit that you can derive by making a talisman, which you can find in other books on magical squares. So that's also quite remarkable about the Ganit Sar. I'm not saying that talismans are not practical. They heal people. At least people think that they heal people. But it's not there. There is a whole section on how to convert dates. This is also new. There are two dates used in coin inscriptions and records. In medieval India, all records were kept at two levels. At the level of the village, in the language of the village, and also at the level of the Pargana, which was the group of villages with the headquarters, or kasbas. But above that, all records were kept in Persian. And there was this back and forth. Particularly when an officer wanted to audit the records of his revenue staff by comparing the records with the records of the village accountant or patwari. In that, these manuals were very helpful. So Pheru gives methods of converting Vikram Samvat into Hijri, to add the difference of intercalary months, between Vikram Samvat and Hijri, first by dividing it by 976, which he does not explain, but we know from other texts that 1:0.976 is the formula. Then from the sum, Peru subtracts the difference between the two eras in lunar years, 699, to get the Hijri date. Again, to convert Hijri into Vikram dates, deduct the difference of intercalary months by dividing Hijri by 1006. That also he does not explain and takes from a tradition which is very well known, perhaps also to his readers. To the sum, add the difference between the two eras in solar years to get the Vikram Samvat. And finally, this part which one can go on and on about this. The most interesting statement in this is that grain grows everywhere, but because of the quality of the soil, there is difference in the yield. Peru is very well aware that there are areas which are rain-fed, there are areas which are irrigated, there are areas irrigated by well and also by other methods like arhat, and therefore he gives a list of 25 crops grown in and around Delhi in the 2 seasons and give their yields per unit. This is very useful. It's also useful because the 2 pillars of land revenue assessment of the state were measurement and yield. Land was measured in Bigha and Biswa, which Peru explains, and crop yield was determined. Unscrupulous rulers had official crop yields to raise the level of taxation, but there is evidence that real crop yields, because of variations, were also used. And the land revenue was fixed as half of the yield per unit of land in man, about which Peru speaks a lot. Similarly, this began with Alauddin Khilji. He was the first ruler to devise a method to extract the maximum from the countryside. In that, I think they are not wrong. Half of the produce. So you can imagine that the prosperity of his kingdom, his campaigns, his, of course, building projects. He built a whole city, the city of Siri, after the Mongol invasion. His continuous fight against the Mongols, it was all bankrolled by the countryside. And some of the secrets of this lies in the method that Peru discusses. So the rate of taxation was very high. So high that his own nobles who became rich started conspiring against him and wanted to bring him down. Then he gives, Peru gives the yield of sugarcane, which is also very helpful. 1/5 of the juice is jaggery, 1/6 is brown sugar, and 1/16 is sugar candy or khand. Oil, and finally butter and ghee. 40 seers of milk yields 5 seers of butter and 3.75 seers of ghee. So this is the kind of material which interests me as and I beg for your indulgence. And I will conclude by saying that Thakura Peru is a remarkable scholar in many ways, he is a mediator between two traditions, the high Sanskrit traditions, which he carried forward so ably, and also the popular practical tradition, which was the need of the hour. He was also some kind of a mediator between a new wave of ideas and technologies that were coming from Central Asia, from the Perso-Islamic world, and had a major impact on the political, economic, and architectural landscape of India. He was also some kind of a mediator between different classes, state officials, bankers, and merchants. So in many ways, Peru, with his writing, is a figure that needs to be studied in much greater detail than perhaps has been possible for me. Thank you.
How Peru could master so many disciplines?
Just one comment. There are books in Telugu and Kannada, similar, about 200 years earlier. But mathematically, as Sakya pointed out, the most interesting is he has a classification of magic squares between odd, doubly given and even.
Yes.
Odd even. That was taken up later on by Narayan Pandita. There is no, this is the first text which has that classification.
Okay.
Known text.
All
So
right.
it's very interesting.
Yes, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, Saman, Shaman.
Yes, that's quite true. I'm sorry I didn't go into the. Much of this was later copied in Persian manuals, which were produced during the Mughal period, and Chandrasekhar Saab would know more about this, which I was tempted to, but that would have taken our attention away from Peru.
I had a question. So in your talk you mentioned that he has been using numbers which were practically employed in the society. So how do we make the statement with certainty?
How do we test? So how do we test?
Some of them could be there, but all of them, would we be able to make is there some statement which he makes or?
See that the first 3 chapters are not historical in that sense. We don't have to test his figures. He's not giving us historical information. He's talking about different ways of doing mathematics, procedures. It's this part that can be tested. It has been tested because there is a contemporary text, a Persian text on mathematics, Dasturul Albab, which gives crop yields, and they are remarkably similar. The correlation between 2 texts written in 2 different perhaps spaces with very little possibility of intercommunication to have similar figures is a remarkable testimony to the validity.
Did he hold any official position?
Yes, he was the mint official, and perhaps he was also the either a high official or chief of the royal treasury, because he says that I see every day appraisers evaluating different kinds of gems and their worth, and that's how I calculated and documented some of this data.
Do we know anything about Peru's ancestry?
Yes, a little. Came from Haryana and settled in Delhi. His grandfather held some kind of an position because he was also called Thakkura. And Thakkura is not a title which is given easily. It's given only to people who hold some position, some official position. There is also a possibility, but this has to be established, that they belong to a community of Jains proficient in assaying and money changing. Because there is a collection of documents in Sanskrit called Lekha Paddhiti from Gujarat, which is contemporary, where only bags of coins tested by these people with their seals can be accepted without opening the bag. So that's the only thing that we know about him.
So all the learning that he would have done would have come from his ancestry.
I think so, but there is plenty of evidence for Peru to be communicating with a lot of people who he does not name. But the way he presents that this is what I have been learning from people who are my contemporary, as opposed to people who have written in the past.
Can I, maybe this is a kind of a manual for practical mathematics, because you had also mentioned accountancy somewhere, so maybe if you put the two, perhaps it's an everyday mathematics that that also kind of influences all domains, like you mentioned, that from gemology to architecture.
Very true. So there are two registers in the Ganit-Sar comedy. And the first register is, of course, of mathematics, and the second is that practical part. Not only that it's practical, it also gives historical information. It's also a reflection of a new era and change in a whole many, a transmission of new ideas, new technologies, political economy of the state. There is a state which is very powerful now, which is extracting revenue in a very organized way. So it is in that sense that the second register of the Ganit-Sar comedy is of much greater interest to social and political historians.
Major, does he refer to the theoretical parts in the first three chapters?
He does.
When he's, giving is he giving its applications in 4 and 5?
Yes, not in 4 and 5.
Not in
No, not in 4 and 5
But
as such.
within 1 to 3.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. It's a really a very elaborative manuscript which you have shown. And thank you to organizers who gave me opportunity after 2 decades to attend your lecture. So some of such manuscripts, few manuscripts related to these things are available in Oriental research in Rajasthan also. People usually come up in our department and ask us, these are the Dravya Parikshan manuscripts you have, and did you find anything related to the alchemy, where they can utilize, touch the metal and make the gold as well? So any such references you got in this one?
No, not in the Ganit-Sar and not in the Dravya Pariksha at all, not even in Dhatu Utpatti. I think Peru stays away from all this. That's also quite remarkable. That's why I like him also. He knows that you can't produce gold from using alchemy.
Modern sensibilities in 14th century.
Quite remarkable in that sense. Yes, please.
So I was just wondering, why did he write this book? Was it some kind of a royal project, or he's helping the king manage better? Or
No.
it's his own hobby, or making his own job easier?
There's no hint that it's a commissioned project. I think partly it's a labor of love. He's a scholar. He reads and writes. He's quite an extraordinary person because, as you can see, he's also an official, and he's a busy official. To be working in the Khalji bureaucracy is not an easy job. We know it from other sources. So it's quite. He says that he is writing it for his son Hempal, possibly for him to learn accountancy and mathematics, and we also know that government job, much like today, was highly coveted at that time, and it was a regular source of income. So these can perhaps, but nothing takes away from Peru the idea that one should be somebody who wants to learn from this whole corpus of knowledge and also to transmit.
Any indication when he wrote it, at what stage of his life? He told, no? 13.
What age of life is difficult to determine. We have two references to Peru participating. These are independent sources. Peru does not mention participating in pilgrimage, one to Shatrunjay. The second reference is to the period of Muhammad Tughlaq. which is the second half, well, no, not second half, which is the middle of the 14th century. So we know nothing beyond that. He was alive till that time, of course, alive and fit to travel in the yatra. But after that, we don't know. We don't know the age or lifespan of Thakurabi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We now have Professor Chandrasekhar, who is Head Department of Persian and Center for Central Asian Studies, University of Delhi, and who's Honorary Professor, Tashkent State University for Oriental Studies, and Senior Consultant at the Hill Museum and Manuscripts Library, New York. His recent projects include an annotated Persian text of Gulshan-e-Sadiq based on 2 manuscripts, a primer for decipherment and analysis of Persian archival documents, cartographic mapping and Persian sources of the 19th century, and a map of Delhi to Karnal on the Yamuna showing the environment and bird-animal habitats. He will be talking about references to Indic mathematics, especially reckoning, in Perso-Arabic sources, and a study of Al-Khwarizmi's works.
First, I must thank Dr. Sudha Gopalakrishnan, who allowed me to enhance my knowledge beyond my domain. Also to Ambassador Saran, who encouraged me to take part in especially the exhibition and gather variety of the manuscripts on mathematics and astronomical sciences from Central Asia and Turkey, which many of you would have seen yesterday in the exhibition. I studied mathematics only up to my 11th as in my higher secondary, and never thought that again I will be back to this. But I did read a lot of which yesterday, if I am truly corrected, that which we call Arabic numerical system is basically Indian word, and we call it Siak system. Millions of documents in India in various archives have this writings in Siak system. All the revenue detail are in this one.
What is here?
We call it Siak system. Arabic word is Siakat. You are from south in Hyderabad itself, and now it is called Telangana State Archives. More than 10 million documents are there. Recently, Noor Microfilm Center digitized more than 2 million. Nitin is sitting behind you from Bikaner State Archives. A huge number, the number he can tell. Majority of these are having this Arabic numerical system, that is a Siak system. And yesterday, Manjul said that it's basically an Indian system. In the morning, I was discussing with our friend Najaf. We call it Al-Hinsa. And interestingly, in majority of the major lexicons, the equivalent word of Al-Hinsa is given just as a Riyazi or Hisab. They do not give any etymology. But just now I remember in No Sipar of Amir Khusro, where he eulogizes India, he uses the word Al-Hinsa, mentioning that the contribution of India to mathematics. But I'm surprised that the word for the meaning of the Indian number system is not given in Persian lexicons and without any etymology for that. But we do have from Amir Khusro this kind of a meaning for word Al-Hinsa. Instead of just focusing on one, I made it survey. Usually it is referred that Panchtantra, a corpus of Indian knowledge system, is the first ever book went out of India in 6th century. In 8th century, during the decline of Sassanids, in the period of Khusro Anushir I and later Yazd-ul Salis or III, Zijul Shah or Zijul Arkand, both were prepared on the basis of Aryabhata's Ardharatika. I will mention that I am not from the discipline of astronomical science or mathematical science. I am just reproducing what is written in Perso-Arabic manuscripts. So I may be corrected for my every line. There is no concrete evidence when and by whom first Indian knowledge on mathematical and astronomical sciences were taken to Arab or Persian lands. We have some references. Or the Indian numbers were first described in Indian mathematical around 200 BC. That is the period of Kushans who had come from near Kyrgyzstan area, and they were called Yazdis and made present Peshawar as their capital after crossing whole south of present Uzbekistan and came up to central India. Work by Pingla on enumerating possible patterns of Sanskrit poetry found from syllables of two lengths, Lagu or Guru. They are named after this kind of a word, who introduced the sequence to Western European, and later on it was known in the name of Fabenico. In his book in 1202, it is mentioned, it was applied in connection with metrical science by Pingla, Hemchandra and others. Recently, an Iranian Orientalist, Professor Fatehullah Mujtabai, Professor Emeritus of Indian Philosophy and Sanskrit at Tehran University, he was first Iranian Cultural Councillor in New Delhi in 1975, and present building was also purchased by him, has published a book about 6 years back on the similarities of Arabic prosody and Sanskrit Pingla's Chand Shastra. Perhaps this is the first book of this kind on this kind of similarities. According to him, Arabic prosody system is based on Indian prosody or Pingla's Chand Shastra. He has given this statement, and when we discuss this book in our Arabic department, no one is ready to accept this statement. Of course,
He says that Arabic prosody is very different from Sanskrit prosody.
sir, no. As Sanskrit is a complete framed language, Arabic too. I again go to Amir Khosrow, where he has given this comparison only maybe to his following of the religion. He keeps Arabic up. Second correction I will mention, Amir Khosrow uses the word Hindvi for Sanskrit as well as for the Hindvi word. Our English translations, which was done by Eliot, and he was supported by many of our Indian scholars, this particular text for Amir Khosrow, he compared Arabic word Hindvi as a Hindi language instead of Sanskrit, because a Hindi language structure is not equivalent to Arabic, while Sanskrit is. So he says, Fatehullah Mujtabai, that Pingla's Chand Shastra is the basis for the Arabic prosody system.
The translation of
Yeah.
Biruni
Yeah.
that's causing the problem.
Yeah. What my next point is, this is also one point that mathematical informations were also transported along with this one from Indian side through the Arabs. There are other archaeological sources too which establish that Indians' knowledge system on different subjects was widely known to others, especially to our neighboring Iranians who had extended their rule up to North Africa on other side in pre-Islamic period, while Lahore up to 5th century here. In early 1st and 2nd century, Indian sources of knowledge were also transported by Buddhist monks and to the Central Asia, as if you go to Tirmiz, Karshi, Kuwa, and near Turkmenistan, you will find still many Persian Sanskrit words being Persianized or Tajikized or Uzbekized are in usage still. Another opening of Indian knowledge system was the deep southern ports of India, where Arab sea traders were continuing since old times, much before the advent of Islam. A description in Al-Masalik al-Mamalik tells how Indian merchandise used to be projected in Basra market, as in a book published in 1889 from Leiden. All these merchandise were exported from deep southern ports then and later on transported to Europe too. The period of assimilation and synchronization of early Hellenistic, Indian and Sassanid astronomy started during Abbasid period, a momentum initiated to accumulate global knowledge in various formats, transition, adaptation of various knowledge-based sources. The period is usually termed as Golden Age in the promotion of Islamicate world of science and knowledge. It began with the reign of Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid, culminating with the siege of Baghdad. Acquisition from all sources and domains of knowledge, notably mathematics and astronomy, especially during 9th and 10th centuries, had a notable Indian influence. Several important Indian mathematical and astronomical texts were translated into Arabic during that age, significantly impacting the development of mathematics in Islamic world and beyond. These transitions introduced concepts like Indian numerical system, including zero, algebraic techniques, trigonometric ideas, and notably the sine function. In fact, sources of mathematical science created during that golden age, based on Greek and Indian mathematics, were later projected in Europe. These Arabic sources in Islamic world, especially during 9th and 10th centuries, got grounded on both the schools of Greek mathematics and as well as Aryabhata, Brahmagupta, and many others. Important progress was made, such as development of decimal place value system to include decimal fractions. The first systematized study of algebra and advances in geometry and trigonometry, Arabic works played an important role in the transmission of mathematics to Europe of Indian system. Al-Kindi, Al-Khwarizmi, Abul Hussain Koshyari, and later Al-Biruni, both were contemporaries but having no reference in each other's works, became the known figure in the area of mathematics in Islamic world. All four of them were well aware of Indian mathematical and astronomical sources, like Khanda Khandya, mean edible bite, is an astronomical treatise written by Brahmagupta in 665. In the same process, amongst many Indian men of knowledge, Ujjain-based, who said to be originally from Sindh, astronomer Kanke reached Baghdad at the court of the Caliph al-Mansur. Tarikh-e-Behki also mentioned this name. Though no source discloses how Kanke was invited or reached Baghdad, yet it is only a probability that since he originally belonged to Sindh and his Sindh links, where Arabs had got some administrative influence, would have made his journey to Baghdad possible. But it is all hypothetical, no reference we get. Among the works, he had a copy of Brahmagupta's work on astronomy, as it is well known that Brahmagupta was a court astronomer in Ujjain and he wrote Brahmasphut Siddhanta, a revised version on the text from Brahm Paksh school after his arrival at Ujjain from Bhinwala at present in Rajasthan. In this text from astronomy, he discussed trigonometry too and defined zero for the first time as mentioned in various sources. Later he also wrote other sources which also reached and used by Khwarizmi and Al-Biruni and Farzis also. This transition, which was created during that period, was first assigned to Ibrahim al-Fazri, who died in 777, an 8th century Muslim mathematician and astronomer, to translate into Arabic. The Arabic version is known as Al-Zij al-Sini al-Arabi, and the another person who helped him, Yaqub bin Tariq, and it is mentioned that the Kanke was also present there, helping in this transition. Perhaps it is the first Arabic transition of Indian source in West Asia, which became source for other works later on and also introduced to Arab Peninsula to Europe. As per the writings on him, he composed various astronomical writings, especially the Astrolabe. While Al-Fazri is best known for his work in astronomy and astrology, his contribution to mathematics were also significant. Yesterday, Professor Manjul referred to Jiva. We all use the word Zij. Interestingly, Al-Biruni in Al-Qanul Masudi specifically mentioned that the word Zij is from Sanskrit, from Jivard, and he has given the complete etymology for it, but we all use Zij word as drawn from the Arabic word. Al-Fazri's translation of the Zijul Sindh Hind for Siddhant was particularly influential. The text served as a foundation for later astronomical works also. Fazri's legacy in one of innovative translation and the expansion of knowledge helped to bridge the gap between scientific traditions of ancient world and its emerging Islamic civilization. His contribution is well quoted in many works. The transmission of Indian knowledge on the mentioned sciences continued more with the inquisitiveness and deep passion of Al-Khwarizmi, whose contribution to the development of mathematics is well known. He continued the legacy of Fazri as well as Indian mathematical knowledge system. He was a mathematician and who wrote Hindu Arabic numerals also, a book on that. The word algorithm derives from his name. His algebra treatise, Hisabul Jabr wal Maqabla, gives us the word algebra and can be considered as the first book to be written. And it is the word which is being used for Bijganit at that time. Algebra is a broad area on mathematics that deals with unknown quantities by assigning variables. In Arabic, it means reconstitution from broken parts. The origin of algebra can be traced back to India, where this body of knowledge was called Bij Ganitham. Bij means the seed on the basic entity, and Ganitham means counting, as mentioned. I am translating from the Arabic sentences. It involves the relationship between the basic entities and assigning variables to them, forming equations to derive value, contrasting with arithmetics. Since one of the aim of the conference was to get hands on Persian and Arabic manuscripts reflecting Indian knowledge system preserved outside India, here I introduce one such manuscript. It is a lesson on manuscript comprising of treatises on mathematics and astronomical science, geographical detail, as well as on medical sciences, preserved in Hagia Sophia Suleymaniya Library, Istanbul, white manuscript number 5857. This is the manuscript, has more than 279 folios. It is comprising of 7 treatises. Our friend Najaf can read it. The first line says, Hazul al-Bab fi asul hisabul hind. And it continues as a transition of this book on Indian mathematical science. The manuscript was scribed in the seminary of the city of Alhama. This is the last folio of this one. At the bottom, this detail is given. On the 1st of Ramadan, 809 Hijri, equivalent to February 1407. It is a collection of 7 booklets, as I said, on the set subjects, and in the treatises on astronomical science and mathematical one, he clearly refers to Indian scientists and Indian book on mathematics. Whole manuscript is in Arabic. In Arabic language, except 2 folios and 3 notes, on border of which it is Persian, surprisingly. The text is scribed in Damashq, which is basically Arabic spoken area. And this particularly on the left hand side, if you can see, this is the Persian text. And it gives the date at the bottom 602. That means the book was originally written in 602, that is 1208 AD. And I'm still working on it to see how many other references regarding the writing of the book is given. Books on mathematics and astronomical sciences belong to 11th century. This Abul Hasan Koshyar bin Labban bin Bushair Gilani, that means he was an Iranian. He worked on trigonometry as well as geography, because there is one treatise completed on geography and it has references to Multan and other cities also in the same one. As I stated above, Koshyari consulted Greek, Indian and Babylonian astronomers. On the folio 44, he gives all 3 references. 26th chapter on the duration of spheres and lights and their creation and the creator. He mentions, I have seen the scholars from Rome, that is Byzantine, India and Babel, that is Babylonian, on the fact that the heavenly things, the word is a shay, a thing, so it means bodies, but might include other celestial items like comets, but also constellations, etc. Cause everything on earth to change from one condition to another, meaning celestial bodies induce change on earth. For this reason, I mention in this book some of their causes and their courses. Hippocrates says that the astral sciences are not only a minor part of medicine, and he also says that the rising and setting of the stars is what changes the time and the change of the time of bodies. From folio 196 to 267, there is a book by Koshyari on astronomical studies and geography. Onwards 268, his book on Indian mathematics. Yesterday I have given the hard copy of the manuscripts, and some folios have been pasted in this exhibition also. The purpose of calculation is the presence of quantity of unknown quantities getting to that point. Multiplication is based on 3 terms, as he says, which are al-zarb, al-qism, or al-jaz, that is a division also. Then the onwards first section, that al-faslul awwal, he introduced 1 to 9 numbers, not up to 10. And then he mentioned ashra and mat, that is 10 and 100. By then in second is one sheet under marfa, this kasra al-hind, which is here. In this one, he uses Persian terms instead of Arabic terms, like dangi from dang. It is used as a sixth of any amount, also 1/4 of dirham. Neem dang, that is half or 1/3. Tasu, a weight of 4. According to some, it is 2. The definition I got from Stenga's Persian English Dictionary. It is also 24th part of a weight measurement, or day also. This folio seems to be added as it seems maybe later on, because the previous folio has its border a lengthy note you can see on the right hand side. The whole text on right hand side continue in Arabic, including the writing on the border. The note also has a concluding sign at its end, al-Takwila, after 279 onwards. 279b, a new treatise also on mathematics begins. There are also folios. I will come to this slide later on. A new treatise also on mathematics begins. There are few folios which seems to be later addition and having some notes like text explaining various mathematical fundamentals into Persian. The last folio, which has colophon, depicts that it is like a primer for young learners of mathematics as well as getting their knowledge on astronomical science and geography too. Prior to direct establishment of Islamic State in North India and down to south onwards, 1206 onwards, some of the above were features of Indian mathematics they bound in the borders. Under the Islamic standards or the flags, Ghaznavis under the leadership of Mahmud Ghaznavi plundered India. Though in his own capital, he endeavored to revive Baghdad school of accumulation of knowledge, but not wisdom, as we know. On the issue of scientific matters, Al-Biruni was not satisfied with Mahmud Ghaznavi. Even when Mahmud Ghaznavi offered him a camel loaded with silver coins, Mahmud never gave any gold coin, even not to Firdausi, whom he had promised. But Al-Biruni refused to accept. Books on Islamic jurisprudence were written during Mahmud Ghaznavi's time, and these were continued to be referred much later also. However, Al-Biruni, for his inquisitiveness in various STEM subjects, pondered more on astronomical studies and used Indian sources, though not agreeing in some cases. He accompanied Mahmud of Ghaznavi in India expedition, translated many Sanskrit Hindu scientific works into Arabic and Persian. His accumulated knowledge on Sanskrit and Indian culture and customs do not show that he came to central North India to learn Sanskrit or to observe Indian culture. His all information on these subjects are from those who were stationed in northwest area, that is Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was itself a place where all type of knowledge of Indian system was there. As we know, itself the father of Sanskrit, Panini, was there, and all the data of Panini is also from Khorasan area, not from this central North India. So whatever the Panini has given about Sanskrit, it is from the nearby Khorasan area, not from this side. There are a large number of studies on Al-Biruni and his specific contribution to the promotion of Indian knowledge and culture in his birthplace and adjacent area. I am fortunate that I have been to that area where Al-Biruni initially born in Kharizm area, and people of Kharizm still feel themselves elite, and they don't even wish to give hand of their daughters to the other area, even in Uzbekistan. Both Farabi and Al-Biruni were from that area. The Al-Kanul Masudi, which has the earliest manuscripts in Bodleian, this one is a Bodleian manuscript, and which is also base for the Al-Kanul Masudi's edition published from Hyderabad in 1953, and according to many other sources, still it is not translated. It is interesting to state, as Professor Najaf also mentioned, after establishment of Islamic power in India, slowly up to 16th, 15th century, all the revenue records, like Iran, where it was written in Pahlavi and Persian earlier, or in Arab, where even during the Umayyad period, the medium of recording of the all imperial material was Hebrew and Latin, not Arabic. Similarly, in India, it was Persian and vernacular language. In many cases, even we have up to Shah Jahan's later period, Persian records are bilingual. You can see Bengali, Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, or other Mundi languages. So Persian, in spite of the fact that it was declared by Todermal as a official language, but the influence of vernacular languages can be also noted from these archival records. However, continuation of the translation of Sanskrit or Indic languages continued. Leelavati was one of the famous source, or the other writings which came up, and even prior to Akbar's period, Leelavati was translated in late 15th century in Delhi. Again, it was translated, and on the basis of that, I show you the one folio from Kholastu Siak, which is from the Aurangzeb's period, and this is National Archives manuscript copy. And here also they mention about the translation of Leelavati, and they mention that still many forms of Indian mathematical system is being used, while from Shiraz, Sayyid Fatullah Shirazi, who arrived in Akbar period, who was first in Adil Shah, Emperor of Bijapur, and later on joined Akbar's period on initiative of Abdul Rahim Khan Khanan, and he was given a very high position, though he remained for a shorter period, but some fundamental system in the state accountancy which was introduced by him were adopted. System was changed, but the still Indian mathematical, or especially the accounting system, remained, and many sources has impact of this one. In regard of astronomical sciences, one can see few manuscripts which are put up yesterday in the exhibition. A large number of astronomical science material which is available today, either in Al-Biruni Oriental Library of Manuscripts in Tashkent, or in National Library of Iran, Marashi Library, or even University of Tehran's library. All these works are having some influences. As a man of languages, I may say another point. You will find huge number of Indic language words as not only Zij, it is other way around. Many astronomical terminology is being written in the same form as is written in the Sanskrit alphabets, to which we call digraphia. And for them it was even word like hathia is used by Persian poets. For them, to usage of the new words, bringing the new subjects in their poetry. That was another way how they were using these terms from mathematics and Indian astronomical science. This Koshyari's work, referred by Muhammad Baghri also, but this manuscript has not been used, which is one of the earliest manuscripts of Abul Hasan Koshyari. Thank you.
Just one clarification. You mentioned that Zij, according to Al-Qanun Masudi,
Yeah.
Is a translation of Jiva.
Yeah, he uses the word Jivarth in his chapter, and the reference I can give you, even the Arabic complete version which is
They are not
mentioned.
written on this. Is there something written in English on this? Because this is not translated. Al-Qanun Masudi is not translated.
I'm giving you this word. He mentioned,
But Professor Clemency has written a book on Sanskrit.
I mentioned that this is to mention that the word Zij, like in Zijo Lugbeg, Zijo Muhammad Shahi, etc., is derived from Sanskrit word Jivard. In Arabic, the word is written J Ye Be, not Jim Ye Way. That is, meaning is string of bow, arrow and bow. Al-Biruni in third chapter of Al-Qanun Masudi provided root of this word, and he used the word jibard. I'm not pronouncing according to Sanskrit word. I'm giving you the Arabic transcription.
That's why I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I'm saying,
Which version is this?
now, the reason is, if you compare large number of Sanskrit terminology being transcribed in Perso-Arabic sources, a lot of changes. The reason, they were not knowing the Sanskrit. The person who is telling them, whatever they heard, they wrote. I give you the best example of that. There is a lexicon, Yule dictionary, Hobson and Jobson. This is the best example. There is a dictionary called Hobson and Jobson by Dr. Yule. A few years back, I was in Academy of Persian Language and Literature of Iran, where I'm honorary member. I told to the president, can you make out what is the word Hobson and Jobson? He said, must be English word. I said, no, it's a purely Islamic word. He said, as they usually taunt on our people, he said, no, or someone would have. I said, sir, it is Hussein and Hassan. How Britishers used to send some people to collect reports what is happening in. So in East Asia, especially it is from Bali or Indonesia, as given in the introduction of this dictionary. So the report was submitted that there is a procession and people are shouting, Imam Hussain. These Britishers, they heard Hobson and Jobson, and the report was sent to Dr. Yule, and he collected all these and used to send to London back. He said, this is the best example how the words of Indic. So in the same way, if you read this Arabic text and see how the words have been changed. So, but when we read now and then make out, still our Iranian friends impose that many words are of Persian, like you have a city, Sangamnayar, Tipu Sultan connection to that also. One of our Iranian friends recently prepared a text. So he used the word Sangmeez. And in footnote he mentioned, perhaps the writer has written erroneously the word. Fortunately, I met that person and I said, look, every Indian word is not Persian. Thank you a lot. Sorry to encroach upon the time. I know the lunch time is...
Yeah, I'm sorry, just before we break for lunch, maybe we'd like to honor our speakers for this morning. So, sir, may I request you to honor Professor Clemency Montanelli and Professor Ramasubramanian?
हो गया
एक बार दो बार बोलेंगे तो दो बार
You are what's up.
Thank you.
Professor
Mahesh.
आप इधर आ जाइए.
Professor Najar Faida. Chandrasekhar.
You have found a new area for me.
Lunch is served outside in the bungalow.
What
Start to reconvene.
Pergola.
Is 2 o'clock possible?
205.
205.
2:05. So,
half an hour.